All right. Hello. Ugly sweater day. He's got legs. Anyhow, we're going to start on page 128 of your science book and just talk briefly about this. Kind of the same thing you're doing for homework today, or yesterday, I guess it was. But we're just going to go over it and we're going to review just a little bit for the test. We just finished checking our homework, trying to get everybody to calm down because, believe it or not, they're very excited about Christmas break coming and the possibility of ice in the morning and all that good stuff. So, okay. All right, here we go. 128, like I said, we just want to hit on this kind of briefly because we talked about it yesterday in the handout. And then your homework questions were about the six simple machines. So we're just going to kind of finish up. That should give us 10 minutes or so to discuss some of what's going to be on the test. Okay. It talks about, have you ever ridden on a seesaw or pried open a paint can with an opener? If so, then you've already familiar with another simple machine that is called the lever or lever, okay? And of course, that is the rigid bar that is free to pivot or rotate on that fixed point. And that fixed point is called a what? Fulcrum. A fulcrum, okay? And how it works, there's different classes of this. You got first class, second class, third class. Okay, a first class is like a paint can, for example. If you've ever opened up a paint can using one of the little openers they give you when you buy the paint, okay, it's like a little key and it's got a little upturned end and it fits perfectly under the lid of the paint can. Okay, it's made, it's got a little edge on it, and you put that there and you rest it on the can itself and you push down. Okay, so the can becomes your what? Fulcrum. Okay, it becomes the fulcrum. Okay, and then your input force is you pushing down. The output force is the lid coming up. Okay. Yes, Leo.
So wouldn't it work the same way with like a can of food? Because like you're just can you do that?
You using that? Yeah, if it had that type of top to it. If there's one where you had to use a can opener, no.
How would you this? I was very.
Yeah, it's got to have the top. Otherwise, you're just going to waste a lot of time not doing anything. Yes, sir.
On the third class leader with the hockey player, do you see how his and her face is?
Yeah, he looks like he's scared, doesn't he?
I know.
Yeah, he does. All right. Now, anyhow, but that is a first class lever. Okay, that's first class working that way. You can see the picture there. The input force is pushing downward. The output force is moving it up. The can becomes the fulcrum. Okay. You've got the second class is a wheelbarrow. Okay, that falls into the second class.
That's a dog.
Well, it doesn't matter what you put in it. A load is a load. Okay. The wheel becomes the fulcrum. Okay. The output force is you lifting up on the handles, and when you lift up on the handles, what does the force do?
It brings it up.
It goes up also. So the input force and the output force is going in the same direction. Okay? So these levers increase the force, but do not change the direction of the input force. Okay? They include doors, nutcrackers, bottle openers, all of that stuff. Okay? All right, now the third class is the hockey player down there. Now, what he does is these increase the distance, but they don't change the direction of the input force. Okay, so the input force is when he comes back and he hits the puck. The output force is the puck going, but it's going the same way. The input force and the output force is moving the same direction, but it's changing. Where it's at, yeah, it is changing positions, okay? So that's the difference there. The distance between it is
The fulcrum would be the head of the.
Yep. Yeah, the fulcrum is actually his arm. Yeah. Remember we talked a little bit yesterday about a rake. This is right here is the fulcrum. This is the pivot point. It's his arm that is down on the stick that does this. That becomes the fulcrum.
Okay.
Okay?
What kind of ranking?
Okay. All right. So that's pretty simple stuff. Okay. A wheel and axle. Okay. It is almost impossible if you ever tried, because I have done it before when I couldn't find a screwdriver. You're trying to get a screw out of something, and you know, or maybe you, if you're really good like I am sometimes, you round out the head where the screwdriver doesn't fit real well anymore. Yeah. And the first instinct is to put your fingers on it to try to twist it to get it out. Yeah, that doesn't work. Unless you've got it really, really loose and it's ready to fall out anyway, you're not going to move that thing with your fingers. Okay? But you take a screwdriver, which is a wheel and axle, and you can twist it one hand without any problem whatsoever. Okay? No matter how deep in there it is, you can actually take it and twist it, because you're adding the force over a distance. Okay? So it works more. Okay? So it's almost impossible to insert a screw into a piece of wood with your fingers, but with a screwdriver you can turn the screw easily. A screwdriver makes use of a simple machine known as the wheel and axle. Okay? A wheel and axle is a simple machine made of two circular or cylinder objects fastened together that rotates about a common axis. Okay? The object with the larger radius is the wheel. The object with the smallest radius is the axle. Okay? In a screwdriver, the handle is the wheel, and the shaft becomes the axle. Okay? A doorknob, a car steering wheel are also examples of wheel and axis. Okay? All of those, anything like that. Sometimes we think about wheel and axle, we think about the tires on your car, or a wagon, or your bicycle. I mean, that's the obvious wheel and axle, but it is other things, doorknobs, the steering wheel, anything that turns on a cylinder is considered a wheel and axle. Okay? Yes?
Isn't that globe technically one?
Yeah, it sure is. So we have a globe that spins, got the thing that goes right through the middle of it. So that is a wheel and axle. Okay? Okay? So yeah, technically that is. Okay, very good. All right, you can see there in the picture, it shows you. And of course, because the handle is bigger than the shaft, you're not having to crank it as hard to get a full rotation out of it. Okay? Everybody know what a screwdriver is? Okay, maybe we should have started with that.
She
Yeah,
does?
got some people looking at me like, what is that? I've never.
A screwdriver.
Uh-oh.
It's the thing with the handle, and you put it in the top of the screw and you twist.
There you go. There you
Wait,
go.
really? Yes, it has a certain kind
Hey.
of head. I thought that was the screw.
All right. You find out that the identical mechanical advantage of a wheel and axle is divided the radius of the wheel by the radius of the axle. Okay? That's just some interesting information. It's not something that you have to know in life in order to operate a screwdriver or something like that, but you know, it's kind of nice to know. Okay, so the output force, okay, is what is the output? What's the input force?
The work that you put in.
The work that you put in. And what is the output force?
The work that the machine does.
The work that the machine is doing. Okay, very good. Okay. Okay. So, a pulley. Okay, pulley is a pretty simple operation. We saw that yesterday. When you raise a flag on a pole, or when you pull enclosed window blinds, you use a pulley. A pulley is a simple machine made of a grooved wheel with a rope or cable wrapped around it. Okay. Remember, it does have. If you noticed yesterday, the ones that we have, they do have that groove in them, and that is to keep, obviously, to keep the rope or the cable from being able just to jump out. Okay. Because if it was just a flat wheel, and you were just trying to balance it in the middle of it, if you got off kilter a little bit, that thing's going to jump off the wheel, and then it's going to crash whatever you're trying to do. So, okay, how does it work? Use a pulley by pulling on one end of a rope. This is the input force. At the other end of the rope, the output force pulls up on the object to move it, okay? You got different types. We saw that yesterday. We just had the single pulley over there that made lifting the weight a little easier. But then we had the block and tackle of 3 pulleys. It made it a whole lot easier. If we'd had a block and tackle of 5 pulleys, you wouldn't have been able to tell you were lifting that 2.5 pound weight. Okay, I mean it would just been like there was nothing at all there. The more pulleys you add, now the payoff is, or the bad part is, you have to use more rope, obviously, with the more pulleys you have, right? So what are we doing? If we have more rope, we're stretching out what?
The distance.
The distance. But by stretching out the distance, it makes the work easier. Remember, we talked about the same thing with the ramp inclined plane. Okay? If you make it, the longer you make it, yes, you're covering more distance, but the easier it is to go up that inclined plane. Okay? Yes?
In a thing like that, was you still lifting the same amount of weight? So technically.
Yeah, I mean, you're still lifting the same amount. It just.
So technically, if I had a 5 thing and like a 10-pound thing, it would be much easier. Like I could just do that all day. Pretty much.
Probably.
But you would still be getting stronger if you did it.
Um.
Or would it take away some of the weight?
No, because the way you get stronger is you got to have the muscle under tension. You got to have the muscle under tension. You
Too
can.
bad.
I
I was
mean,
just thinking I could
yeah.
make it like a block and just go like.
Well, the thing is, if you lift 10 pounds long enough, 10 pounds gets heavy. Okay, your muscle does get exhausted. It does start to get tired, and that is when it starts to grow. You've got to actually. This is off topic. Sorry. Weightlifters, when they talk about feel the burn. What they're feeling is in order to make a muscle grow, you actually have to tire the muscle. Okay, you actually lift so much that you put a small tire in the muscle, and then when it knits back, that's that scar tissue that builds up that muscle. Okay, that's how you get stronger.
That's how that's how
And your muscle is getting stronger because of that. Okay. So, all right, we got the types of pulleys here. You got the fixed pulley, which is what we had over there yesterday, the single pulley. You pull down, the input force is pulling down, the output was the weight going up. You got the block and tackle, where we had, now this one is just a 2 pulley system, but we have, we had a 3 pulley system. Again, your output was pulling down, the input was going up. You can do it different ways. That picture there in the middle, it calls it a movable pulley. That one, if you notice the way it is rigged up, that's the idea. If you're working by yourself, like I talked yesterday about baling hay and getting it up into the loft. If you're doing this by yourself, you go down, you hook it onto the bale of hay, you go up, and you got it rigged up so you actually pull up on it to lift it up. Okay? So the input force and the output force is kind of going the same way. And then you get it up and you can swing it in and unhook it yourself. That's the idea if you're working by yourself.
Or you can take a tractor with little
Okay.
hook thingies, you put it up, put it up.
And that's if you've got a tractor. Old farmers didn't used to have lifts on their tractors like that.
Oh, I have a tractor, that's
Yeah.
what we use.
My dad has
Yeah,
like 5.
they didn't used to have the lift like that.
None of them.
They had plows, discs, things like that they would hook up to it to work in the fields, but they didn't have anything to lift like that. But not all
I
of it.
thought they had like a simple kind of thing.
Okay, it was very simple. Simple way of life. Okay, now, if you look over on page 135, you talk about a compound machine. Okay, a compound machine is something that is made up of 2 or more simple machines. Okay, this is an old-timey apple pillar. Okay, yeah, I got one too. But it has a wedge that you adjust it, and the wedge actually takes the skin off of the apple. It's got the screw there. It's got the wheel and the axle, and it's got a lever. Okay, the lever there on the bottom that you see, that is almost like a suction cup thing. You set it on the table and you push down on that lever, and it expresses the air out, and it sticks to the table. Okay, so that you can crank it and fill an apple. And then when you get ready to move it, you just put the lever up and it releases the sections from it. Yes?
Why does it look like the apple is cut?
Do what?
The apple is cut.
Well, it peels it, is what it does.
No, I know. The one my mom got from Mexico was cut.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be, wouldn't a bike be a compound machine?
A bicycle is a compound machine, yes. Bicycles are compound
He
machines.
said a pipe.
Okay. What, think about a bicycle for a minute. What are some of the simple
The
machines?
wheel and axle.
Okay?
Yeah, the wheel and axle, and also if what that is like a lever, isn't like the thing that like you like it's like the kickstand or something.
A kickstand. Kickstand is a lever. Yeah. What do you think?
The steering thingy is
Okay.
The spurs.
What do you think?
The pedal.
the handle.
The pedals. You got a pulley system, believe it or not,
With the chain.
with a chain. Yes, that's a pulley system.
The wheel.
Okay, the wheel and axle. If you got handbrakes,
Yeah, that's.
okay, that's levers. Yeah, you're actually working that closes up the thing that stops it. Okay. All right. I sent you guys a thing about what you just needed to study for your test, primarily the homework questions. You'll be fine. All right. Bye.